This is episode 18 of the Joyful Movement Show, and I have a delightful guest on the podcast today. Ruth Montgomery is an energy specialist, and she's here to talk to us about how connecting to our inner child can help us find our joy. So stay tuned. Hi there. Welcome to the Joyful Movement Show. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, mom, recovering dieter, and founder of Radiant Vitality Wellness. As a personal trainer with my own story of body acceptance, I've seen firsthand how diet culture influences the fitness industry and the damage it causes the women I work with, keeping them on the start-stop cycle, struggling to find motivation. It's now my mission to empower women to break free from torturous exercise, restrictive eating, and body shame. Stick with me and I'll help you discover what moves you so that you can tap into that burning motivation deep inside yourself and experience joyful movement, peace with food, and feel confident in your own skin. Are you ready? Let's lace up our runners, pop the earbuds in, and go for a walk while we chat. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Joyful Movement Show. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Kim Hagel, personal trainer and registered holistic nutritionist, and I'm on a mission to help women break free from all the rules and figure out what moves them so they can finally find that motivation and consistency they've been seeking. Of course, joyful movement is what I'm all about, and that means something different to every person. And part of what I do is help women figure that out for themselves. But sometimes it's really hard for the women I work with to identify what brings them joy, particularly if they've had a difficult relationship with exercise or sport throughout their life. So our guest today has some amazing insight and helpful information to share on that topic. Ruth Montgomery is an energy and empowerment coach, and I invited her here to chat with us about how we can connect to our joy by connecting to our inner child. As Ruth will explain, back when we were children, joy was just our natural state. We did the things we loved without abandon and without judgment and without worry about whether it was good or bad or what people might think. But as we grow, we start to internalize those societal expectations or the things that are happening around us, and we start to conform to who we think we're supposed to be, and little by little we lose touch with who we are. Ruth shares some practical tips about how we can start to reconnect with that part of ourselves, that pure part of us that just is and chases joy naturally. We also talked about energy and how it is felt as moods or physical sensations in the body, and how we can adjust our mood through movement and other self-care practices that raise our vibration. Ruth shared some insight about the importance of processing our feelings, as unprocessed emotions can get stuck in the body. There's a lot of great information packed in this episode, so I won't give it all away in the intro. Let's just get right into it. But before we do, let me tell you a little bit more about Ruth. Ruth Montgomery is the founder and CEO of the Maven Project. She is a Reiki practitioner, an energy and empowerment coach, and the host of the podcast, The Ruth Montgomery Show. And she's also the creator of Camp Maven. She believes that we are all mavens, and through connecting to our inner child, we can find our passion. Ruth works with clients to guide them on their spiritual journey, introducing them to the magic within and to empower them to make their dreams a reality. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I know I did. Hi, Ruth.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to the Joyful Movement Show. I'm really excited to welcome you here to chat with my listeners because I just think you're a really cool lady. Like, you have
Thank you.
such a amazing presence. You're just so calming and so connected to yourself and to spirit. And I think that what we're going to get into today will really resonate with my listeners, and there'll be some really great golden nuggets that they can take away. So I'm really thrilled that you're here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here and excited for this conversation.
hmm Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about the nature of your work, what exactly it is that you do?
Perfect. So I am an energy and empowerment coach as well as a Reiki practitioner. And so using those tools, what we're doing is we're getting into the energy of our bodies and recognizing that our bodies carry so much energy within us and so much inner knowing. And
Mm.
with the busyness of the day to day and just the society that we're in, we lose touch with that inner knowing a lot of the times. And we at some point we stop trusting our instincts and
Mm.
trusting our intuition. So using Reiki, it's the practice of actually moving energy through the body. So energy will get stuck in the body and show up as physical ailments in the body.
Oh.
And so it can show up in different forms. And then as a Reiki practitioner, we can actually start to release and move some of that energy through the body to make room for new, more positive energy to come through. So any of that kind of stuck blockages, we can just kind of push it through and just alchemize it so that it's a more positive state. And then with the energy empowerment coaching, that's really going in and guiding you visually into a meditation so that you can connect to your inner child, into your higher self, into your spirit guides, but allowing you to remember that connection to self and
Oh.
really getting into that energy. So I'm acting as your guide just to reintroduce you to what you already have within you.
Oh, I just got shivers even just as you were explaining all of that. I mean, it's just so amazing.
Yeah.
I heard you mention inner child as you were talking through. I want to talk about all the things that you just brought up in your
Yeah.
intro, but the inner child part really jumped out at me. Can you talk to me about what you mean by the inner child?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big part of what I do with the Maven Project and Camp Maven as well, is reconnecting women to their inner child, because it's such a part of us that it's the piece of us that when we were little, you think back to how you spent time and you did things purely because you loved them. You did it
Mm.
purely out of passion without thinking or second guessing why you were doing it. And you
Mhm.
followed those little nudges and those heartstrings that pulled you in that direction to find those passions and those purposes. And then as we get older, we kind of get the expectations put on us of who we
Yeah.
should be and who we're expected to show up in the world as. And at some point, we often lose touch with that inner child and we start to get so off course sometimes of who we're expected to be that we forget to
Mhm.
check back in and see if we're still in alignment with that inner child and with that purpose and that soul passion. So the inner child work is really just connecting you back into that and just reigniting that sense of joy and that
Mhm.
childlike freedom that comes from knowing her or him and just being in that presence and allowing it into your day-to-day life more often.
That's so great. And I love how you mentioned the word joy and how we just naturally experienced that and embodied that when we were little people. Um,
Absolutely.
Being that this is called the Joyful Movement Show, obviously that's something that I talk about a lot, and empowering women to find their joy for movement. And here's the thing, I often hear from clients, and I had this issue myself when I was kind of reestablishing my relationship to movement, was like they don't even know what brings them joy. Right? I
Yeah.
recently talked to a client and she was like, I don't even know what kind of movement I would enjoy. I have no idea. And I don't know if that has to do with having like trauma related to exercise or sports, or you'll probably be able to tell me more specifically what's going on there, but how can we reconnect to that joy that we once had?
Yeah, I think that's such a good practice with your clients because really it's just remembering what you did as a kid. And so thinking back to, what were some of your favorite memories as a kid? What were some of the days when you can remember just feeling joy and like time went on forever? Like those
Mhm.
days where you just got so lost in something you didn't realize how many hours had passed doing it. And we
Yeah.
all have those memories. It's just a matter of tapping into them again and
Mhm.
reminding us of them. And if we're so lost from and disconnected from feeling that joy, it is a bit of a journey to get
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
And it's really like picturing us like an onion, right? We've had layers and layers that we've built
Mhm.
over the years and added on. So sometimes it can be a really slow process of just, one layer at a time, getting a little bit closer. And
Mhm.
eventually that joy will start to come out more naturally. But as far as your case with your clients, I would try to just get them to remember or even ask siblings. Like that's a really great
Oh,
one,
good idea.
like
Yeah.
ask siblings, childhood friends, even their parents, if their parents are still around. Like, what did I
Mhm.
do for hours as a kid? Or what do you
Yeah.
remember me doing as a kid and loving?
Yeah.
Because sometimes other people will have a different perception and that'll help spark something in us. And then That's something to pay attention to in your body when that sparks something and your body knows. So you
Mm,
would feel like you said you just got goosebumps feeling that. That's an indication from your body of like, pay attention to this, there's
mm.
something here. Like,
Oh,
listen to
cool.
that. Yeah.
I love how our body has all these amazing ways of letting us know what it wants and what it needs,
Yeah.
right? And what's good for us. Um,
Absolutely.
I, I, I think, and I'm curious to know what you think about this too, is that often it's hard for us to connect with that joy of what, like, it's hard for us to even go back to what we felt we loved as a child because there's all these rules, especially like in my world with exercise and movement. It's like exercise is supposed to look a certain way, right? Like you need
Right.
to go to the gym and you need to lift weights or you need to run, or like there's rules around exercise.
Yeah.
Um, but when you talk about what you used to love to do as a child, I'm pretty sure none of those little people were hanging out in a gym lifting weights, right? So,
No. So just finding that, and then that connection to that inner child will help you start to love and appreciate your connection to your body, which then may make exercise in the gym environment
mhm,
bring in that joy again. So
right.
it's not that they're kind of two separate things. You maybe
Yeah.
just have to go back further than the gym environment to find that joy and then bring it into the gym. But again, that can be like having a dance party in the gym, right? Like finding
Yeah.
that, like whatever that is that brings in those elements of exercise.
Mhm.
And it can just be elements, right? It doesn't have to
Right.
be the whole thing.
Exactly. Or even just the feeling or the mood that you felt, right? Am I right
Yeah.
about that? Like you could just carry that vibe with you. It's not to say you should never lift weights or that that's not right for anybody, but it's more connecting the feeling around it to
Yeah.
that joy you felt as a child. Am I getting it?
Yeah. And some people like, so yeah, you make a really good point there because our inner child wasn't necessarily as exposed to all of the things that bring us joy now. So that inner child is just a connection, just a starting point to
Mm,
finding that joy. It doesn't mean that, don't remember any of the other things that have found joy over the years. So if weightlifting is something that brought you joy later on in life, then connecting to that part as well and just follow that trail, I think is the really cool part about it. Like just find the pieces that
mhm.
bring the joy as you go along. Does that all make sense?
It does. It
Yeah,
does to
okay.
me. It does. It's
Perfect.
yeah. I'm really loving where this is going. Um, Here's another question that I hear a lot with my clients, or not necessarily a question, but just a concern that most of them have is there's a lot of um, beliefs and judgments about their body. Like body image is a big thing about, their weight or their health status as a result of their weight. And I'm wondering how doing this inner child work or even the energy work you talk about with what's stored in their body can help them heal their body image and their relationship to food and movement.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about getting back in touch to yourself, right? And trying to find that joy within yourself to release those expectations that we've put on ourselves from other people. And a lot of the times those things that we hold as negative things are our perceptions of what other people have put on us, but we, generally speaking, like sometimes we do have fact that goes behind that if someone said something and caused a trauma related to that. But a lot of times we in our heads are thinking so much about what other people think, and
Mm.
the idea that they are also in their heads thinking about so much about what we're thinking of them that nobody's actually thinking about. Does that make sense? Like we're not
Hmm.
actually um
It's like we've internalized other people's thoughts and made them our own. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not even that their thoughts are real. We've
Hmm.
fabricated their thoughts based on our perceptions.
Oh, okay.
You know what yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
it's really just
it's
all arbitrary.
right. So getting back to the root cause, like, did someone actually say something? Do you actually believe that at your core? And really
Mhm.
feeling into your body how that feels. And something I like to suggest to people when they're getting started on this kind of self connection is to look yourself in the mirror and just tell yourself how beautiful you are, tell yourself how
Mhm.
loving you are, and look yourself in the eye and have those conversations. And with the inner child work, a lot of that is what did you need to hear as a child? And tell
Okay.
yourself that. Look at yourself in the mirror as if you're talking to 7-year-old Kim or as if you're talking to
Mm,
5-year-old Kim, and tell her what she needed to hear,
yeah.
and feel that in your body and feel how good that feels to have that parent figure of
Mhm,
yourself now kind of talking to the child in you from a
mhm,
place of love and a place of self acceptance, and really feeling that in the body of how good it feels and taking that
mhm,
energy into the movement that you're doing.
mhm. And yeah, I've done work like that in the past, and it is so healing.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to note that, even if we've had the most loving and caring and doting parents, that sometimes they just didn't give us what we needed in that moment, just simply because they didn't know what we needed or they had their own
Yeah.
things going on, right? But it is important to go back and be able to say those loving things to yourself, and just you can kind of like heal that wound and make up for what happened in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's a really great point. Like, I had amazing parents, very loving parents, but they couldn't control how I felt about myself. And they
Yeah.
also didn't know how I perceived different things. So we all are doing the best that we can with what we have. And I think that's an important thing to remember in anyone in our lives. Like, our parents did the best with
Mhm.
what they had.
Mhm.
And recognizing that we are taking in so many different things in our daily life that we're internalizing that and
Yeah.
perceiving that at different levels of knowledge and understanding. So it has nothing to do with the people in your life around you, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that anything really bad had to happen. It's just, something you saw or felt got internalized and kind
Mhm.
of stuck with you on
Yeah.
whatever scale.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Let's talk a little bit about energy
Hmm.
and ways that we can raise our energy, right?
Yeah.
I hear a lot from the people in my world that they don't have the energy to move or they lack motivation.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about why, first of all, why they might feel like they don't have the energy to move their body?
Yeah, there's so many things. Like, even this morning I woke up and I didn't have a great sleep, and maybe didn't I didn't eat breakfast right away first thing in the morning, and so I just felt like really laggy all morning. And then
Mhm.
it was taking that moment to recognize how I was feeling, recognize that I can't fix my sleep from last night. So I need to find the energy to keep going through the day, kind of thing. And just looking at those factors, like, what can you do in the
Mm,
moment? So, can you have a glass of water? Can you have, like, maybe it's a cup of coffee? Can you have a really nourishing meal to nourish your
mhm,
body and give your body the energy that you need? Can you go outside and soak up some sun for a minute? Can you have a gratitude practice and just acknowledge how many good things are in your life today in
mhm.
this moment? And just those little pieces of things that start to bring that joy again
Yeah.
will start to raise that vibration. And vibrationally, different emotions sit at a different level of hertz.
Okay.
So, joy and love are a really high vibration, whereas grief and sadness sit at a really low vibration.
Okay.
So you can actually raise that vibration by bringing those thoughts up. So starting to think about
Mm,
happy things and starting to think about those things that bring you joy, like
yeah.
even visualizing what it feels like to have the sun on your face. Just like little tidbits like that you can pull
Mhm,
in. A
mhm.
gratitude practice is amazing. And the more you have gratitude for the little things, the more you'll start to see. So that really can be tiny things like someone held the door open for you, or
Mm,
you had hot water in the shower this morning. Like, you can find it in anything.
yeah.
So it's just looking for it,
Yeah.
because we get so focused on just getting through the day that we forget to take those moments of gratitude and actually acknowledge how good things really are.
Yeah.
Um, and finding that joy. Then physically finding that energy can be like putting on your favorite dance song and having a dance party, because that energy gets stuck in our body. So moving, either
Mhm.
stretching or dancing, will physically help move that energy out of your body and allow that positive heightened energy to come into your body to raise that vibration.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things there. And I think the first thing that popped into my mind when you were talking was, first of all, like noticing when your vibe is low
Yeah.
and then not getting stuck there, right? Like
Mhm.
it is a conscious choice to decide like whether I'm going to just feel this feeling for a moment,
Yeah.
acknowledge it, and then decide to change it, or whether we're going to get stuck. I often feel like we can get stuck in
Mm.
our emotions and forget all of the things that we have available to us, like you just said, right? All of the, like go out and get a little bit of sun for a second, drink a glass of water, but
Yeah.
before taking on any of those actions that help raise our vibration, there is just a split second decision of like, yeah, I want to do something about this.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think something that you said there about like we can get stuck, and that's something that's important with Reiki and energy work is if there is an actual like grief or sadness or something
Mm,
like a heartbreak, something has
yeah.
happened that has caused that sadness, it's okay to stay at a low vibration while
Mm.
you're feeling those feelings and processing it. Because when we don't process those feelings and actually give them the space to grieve, and we're like jumping and trying to get to that happy state again, that's when the energy gets stuck in our body. And then that's when that negative energy sticks
Uh,
and starts to transform into a physical ailment. And so there's different
okay.
parts of the body that hold different energies. So you can start to recognize, what is really going on here? Like, what is my body trying to tell me from an energetic standpoint?
Uh-huh.
As opposed to just the physical ailment at surface value for what it is. And sometimes, obviously, it is like there's a medical condition and there's
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
But there is that second step of awareness of just
Mhm.
observing what your body is trying to telling you.
Yes.
So, feeling those emotions is so important,
Uh-huh.
that it's not something we want to bypass regularly, but it is possible, absolutely, if you need to, you know, show up for the day or do something, or
Yeah.
you're, it depends on what that is.
No, I'm really glad you made that distinction. And I mean, I talk about that with my clients as well, right? Like, yeah, it's important to know that we can't just manipulate our feelings and kind of outthink our feelings and,
Yeah.
distract ourselves by, going outside, getting the fresh air, drinking the water. Those are effective tools when you're just kind of in a funk, right? In a
Yes.
mood.
Yes.
But I like that you made that distinction about like when there's grief or loss or true sadness, that's a whole other
Right.
set of emotions that really needs to be dealt with on a different level. And you can't just trick your brain into moving past that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can trick your brain in the moment, but those
Hmm.
feelings are going to come back until you deal with them. So you're going to
Yeah.
move through them quicker if you
If
actually
you
give them the
process it.
space to
Yeah.
process and
Yeah.
feel them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important. Thank you for clarifying that. So when energy gets stored in our body, how can movement help us to get it unstuck?
Yeah, great question. So, moving the physical area, so wherever you feel like that energy is stuck, like stretching it out and like just moving and bringing your awareness to that area, the movement starts to kind of like dislodge it and just let it
Mm,
have that flexibility to kind of move around. And there's so many layers to it. So if it's something that is deep rooted and it's been there for a long time, simple movement isn't going to like instantly fix it,
sure.
because energetically it's a lot deeper and there's probably a lot more emotional turmoil attached to it.
Hmm.
Or just like the energetics around it. It's been there for so long. You're
Yeah,
going to want to see like a Reiki practitioner or a psychotherapist or someone that can help guide you through that process
sure.
and move it.
Yeah.
Um, but just allowing that freedom and that movement in the body helps any of that kind of like stagnant energy, I would say, more so,
Hmm.
that stagnant energy can start to take up space where we're starting to feel at a lower vibration more often. So moving that stagnant energy helps allow that positive energy to come in,
Hmm.
to feel that like the joy and the love and find the gratitude on a more regular basis.
Yeah. So would you say like just how might that show up, that stagnant energy? Like what might a person actually feel? What physical sensations would they notice?
So just like stiffness,
Okay.
feeling like, when you just kind of feel like, ugh,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
just like, your body is like, ugh, I don't.
Yeah.
So that feeling, that
Yeah.
energy there is just, you want to get that out of your body and you
Right.
want to move it through your body. So, yeah, stretching where it feels stiff, massaging where it feels stiff, like
Mhm.
just really bringing your awareness to it, I think is as much and as important as the movement as well, of like
Yeah.
acknowledging it for what it is.
It's interesting that we're on this topic because that bleh feeling that you're talking about, to me, that's the lack of motivation that I hear in my clients a lot of the times, right? And it's
Yep.
that bleh feeling that they just don't feel like getting up and moving,
Yeah.
and they stay stuck. But I feel like a lot of that has to do with their whole mindset around exercise, and that exercise is used to earn or burn food, right? And then they're just, that only decreases the motivation even further. So the desire isn't there to move. But as you're saying, like, that's one of the most important things that you can do to help get rid of that feeling, right?
Yeah. So I think in that case too, like really acknowledging, where is this ugh energy coming from? Is it because I didn't sleep well last night?
Hmm.
Or is it because when I think about going to the gym, my mind tells me that I don't want to because I don't want to
Yeah.
burn calories? Like, where is your mind going with that, that's showing up in the body? And so that connection too, of like, just take a moment and listen to your body and getting in touch. And that's with the like the energy connection healing that I do, of like just reconnecting you to what your body already knows and is already telling you, because we don't often give ourselves that space to just sit in
Mm,
silence and watch where our thoughts are going. So for your clients, I would say, like, take a few minutes just in silence and watch where your mind goes and
yeah.
follow those little threads, because then you'll start to uncover what the real root is, and is there something further that you need to, and maybe you're not going to be able to raise the vibration today because there's a deep rooted issue that needs to be dealt with first and
Mhm.
needs to be acknowledged first.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you. But I like what you said about just allowing the thoughts, right? Allowing your brain to go there and become aware of what's actually contributing to this feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because I think we're pretty quick to dismiss what's behind the feeling. We just kind of take the feeling on and sit with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than explore it, what's behind it.
Right. And we just accept it as it is and accept it as fact, rather than recognizing that we have the power to change that and to
Mhm,
change where it comes from and our connection to that belief.
mhm.
And you and I have talked before about like choosing the belief now, like, so something that you, and part of that inner child stuff is, there are things that we have been told and been telling ourselves for so many years because they worked for us at one point,
Mm,
but checking in, does it still work for us? Does our
yeah.
body still want that? And reevaluating those kind of things. Like, for instance, you had said weightlifting, like maybe 10 years ago, that was the movement that brought you joy.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it for so long that, when, like, just recognizing, when's the last time you actually checked in with your body to see if it still brings you joy, and maybe
Mm,
now it's time to switch it up and find something else that brings you joy. And
absolutely.
it doesn't discredit whatever brought you joy before. It just means you're changing, and you might come back to that state again of joy, but allowing that, those ebbs and flows, I think, is so important.
Yeah, I love that. I think we can fall into a real all or nothing trap, or a right or wrong trap, or this is what I do and this is what I don't do trap. But, you
Mm.
know, like you say, that just because something was great in a moment doesn't mean that it was wrong or it didn't serve you, but that doesn't also mean that it serves you today. Right? So
Right.
in every moment there's a choice of what works for you and what doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a lot of the work that I'm doing with the energy,
Yeah.
is really just touching base and tapping into your energy. What is it telling you?
Mhm.
Because you already know, like, but
Yeah.
you need the guidance sometimes to just remember what's there
Mhm.
and what your body is telling you. And the more you do it, like, the more you start to listen to those thoughts, the more you'll start to trust that intuition and trust what your body is telling you. So it really is a practice. It's not a kind of one and done and you
Yeah.
instantly trust everything, right?
It never is.
No.
No. I think it's really important that you brought up the need for support when you're starting this
Yeah.
work, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a process. We've been taught for a long time not to trust ourselves,
Mhm.
and to not trust our knowing. So having someone to sort of guide you through that, I think, is really imperative. So on
Yeah.
that note, if people want to learn more about you and the work that you do and how you might be able to help them, where might they find you?
Yeah, so they can find me at themavenproject.ca, as well as on Instagram at the Maven Project or at Ruth Montgomery 89. That's where I'm most active, but all of the information as far as the energy healing and Reiki sessions is all on the website.
Great. Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Is there anything else that's on your heart that you really want to share with my audience today?
I don't, yeah, there is. I
Okay.
think just that trusting your body is a process and it's not something that is going to feel natural necessarily at first because we get so far detached from that inner knowing. So, giving it the space to feel uncomfortable and to move through that uncomfortable feeling as you start to reconnect to yourself, allow it to be messy, allow it to unfold however it needs to unfold, and trust that there is no right way or wrong way. Like, your body is yours, you know it best. So just trust whatever it's telling you and listen to it.
Oh, I love all of that. Right. Yeah, doing this work it's sometimes messy, it's sometimes difficult, but there's
Mhm.
so much to be gained from doing it. And there's so much gift in the messiness, right?
Yeah.
If you can see it through to the end. Well, that was a really inspiring conversation. I got a lot myself out of that. I know it'll be beneficial to our audience as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your gifts with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, isn't she lovely? I always learn so much when I chat with Ruth, and she's just such a healing, calming vibe that I just can't get enough of. If you want to connect with Ruth, I've linked to her website and social sites in the show notes. She also has a podcast called The Ruth Montgomery Show that's on all the podcast platforms, so be sure to check her out. Ruth is also going to be a guest expert at the Non-Diet Health Summit that I have coming up in April, along with 9 other non-diet health professionals. So I encourage you to check that out as well and register to join us. The information for that is also in the show notes. That's all for today, friends. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it on your social channels. Both Ruth and I are very grateful when our messages get out to the women who need to hear them. Next week, I have another amazing guest for you. I'll be interviewing my friend Uime Uguta, and she'll have some tips for moms to help them raise kids who have a healthy relationship to food. So I hope you'll tune in for that. In the meantime, if you want to stay in touch, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Radiant Vitality Wellness, or you can learn more about how to work with me on my website, radiantvitality.ca. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this community. I am grateful for each and every one of you. Until next week, my friends, go step into Radiant Vitality. Hey, before you go, I just want to tell you how grateful I am for you. It means the world to me that you're part of our Radiant Vitality community. I've got a free gift for you. Head on over to my website and download The Motivation Secret, the simple mindset shift that will get you off the start-stop cycle for good. The link is in the show notes. And hey, if you enjoy this podcast, the greatest gift you could give me is to leave a review or share this episode with a friend. Your shares and reviews help move our show up the rankings on the podcast directories so that it can be seen by more women just like you who are ready for something different with fitness. Bye for now, friend.